being somebody who's been in the industry for long enough, I know the C-suite access points and I can get into the right person. I want from that meeting, I either want a very quick no, no, we don't need that, thank you very much. That quick no in a marketing environment, in a sales environment, I know it sounds so contradictory. And often people will ask me, like, how did you do it? And I was like, well, went bankrupt a few times. And they're always like astounded by that.
This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast.
The podcast for curious marketers who zig when others zag.
This episode you'll learn about selling to C-suite level, why seeking quick rejections actually accelerates your sales success, and a proven strategy for making your clients the rock star within their own organization.
Hello, Alex.
Hey, Erica, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm very well, thank you.
I'm so excited that today I've invited Ronald Gall, our friend from South Africa, to join us. Hey, Ron, how are you doing?
Oh, thank you, guys. Well, thank you. Lovely to see your faces again, and looking forward to this.
Hey, Ron, nice to have you on.
So for our listeners, Ron and I have worked together, jeepers, 15 years, Ron. It's been a long time, right? Like we've known each other for a while. And you've done a few awesome stuff, but why don't you tell our listeners who you are and what you're up to now?
Sure. Suppose you could call me a veteran of the periphery of the insurance industries in South Africa and Australasia. Primarily based around services that either bring out operational cost reductions or alternatively are used as marketing tools, I would say is probably the easiest way to put it, or strategies to be able to get customers quickly, more cost effectively. And then over the last 5-6 years, been involved in a lot more digital side of things, coming out of services like roadside assistance and other assistance services products. And in the last year, launched a technology company using AI around data transformation, which has, very lucky for us, grown its own legs and sprinted off into the distance. And it's keeping my team very busy, and I'm a shareholder in that water business, commodities business, and look after a charity in Soweto in Johannesburg, looking after stroke and head injury victims to extract money from corporates to help for good.
Awesome.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It was much easier when I could say I was a waiter, but apparently the cost of living went up from when I was earning.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I thought it'd be awesome to have you on the podcast, Ron, is that you and I have touched base on and off through various points in our career. And always, I've really appreciated your ability to read a room. That has been like my key insight. And I think, Alex, the times you've met Ron, it's the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is you just have this innate ability to read a room. And I was thinking about it in terms of sales messaging, which Alex and I talk about a lot in terms of getting your message right for the appropriate client. And it really struck me that in order to do that, you have to be able to read the room, right? You need to know who that client is. Talk to us about your skill. How did you develop the skill? Do you think it is a skill?
No, it's probably a coping mechanism from being Scottish and being an only child. Went to boarding school at a very young age and had 300 brothers instead of, just a grumpy Scottish father. And I think humor plays a huge part in it. If I can break the ice in a meeting full of actuaries, I can do anything. If you can make an actuary laugh, they always say, hello to all the actuaries watching. I think the real thing is it's been more arts than class. You might have to edit that out. But it's always been a capability not a capability, it's been a natural instinct for me to be able to understand people. I often get it wrong, but then it can be put into a humorous environment. But if you're talking to somebody and you know the problem that they've got, you can deliver the message of how you can solve the problem in a way that doesn't look insulting to them. It looks like it's their idea. And I think that's a big part of sales is the suggestive nature of sales when in my world, my world of sales is B2B, very rarely B2C. If anything, it would be helping that B2C relationship. But in a room of people, as long as you keep it sort of light and fluffy, you can't go on any specific things. It's almost, I suppose, in a way, comedians have to be careful of what they say and who they say it about, so to speak. Where in a room full of people and you're pitching to them, you can gauge if everyone's staring at their laptops, you've got to do something. You have
Yeah.
to be able to you either just stop, I find that works pretty well, and then you just smile and you act like feel lonely and you're Scottish and your dad's grumpy. Alternatively, you ask them what their problem is, and I think that's what a lot of people miss with marketing is people are quite happy to tell you what their problem is. Or if they don't have a problem, they'll make it clear that they already know what they need to know and they've been told to be in that room because of their boss. And you can adapt your strategy to it. I think you can read as many books as you want. If you don't have that understanding of people's body language, I think is one of the big things I've noticed. If somebody is not making eye contact with you, if somebody's not engaging, if their shoulders are away from you, those are simple things that you could read in a book. But I think if you understand a human being, if you are an outgoing, extroverted kind of person like I am, that and I draw energy from people. So if I can't plug into that energy, it's almost like the plug in the socket aren't meeting, then I have to go to another sort of bag of tools. And those are generally can be anything from asking what they do. You'll notice that body will change because now it's about that person. And most people are quite happy to talk about what they do, especially if their boss has told them to be in the room, because then now's the time to shine. No, so what I actually do is, etc., etc. So it's a combination, I suppose, of logic and instinct more than anything.
And I think there's so much value in what you're saying about letting those people speak as well. Because, I mean, even just from understanding the value that you want to communicate to them, for example, if you're going into the meeting or a sales pitch with a hypothesis of what they want, what they need, um, after doing many pitches and hearing them, what is valuable to them, and you can always then just start optimizing that message to the following up meetings that you have with similar businesses. Even just being straight up and asking them like, you've got these 10 benefits of your business. If I asked you to get rid of one that doesn't make any difference to your business life or your personal life, if I removed it from my offer, which one would it be? And then that's just helping you to kind of trim your offer and make it a lot more powerful as you go along. So having that ability to be able to ask and find out what is and what isn't important. And you can also get that from just speaking to the person. You don't necessarily need to ask the specific question.
Very much so. And I think your perspective, and you guys will know this from, well, especially Erica. I think Alex, you and I's conversation about our past histories are quite different because I'm in my 40s and you're in you just got out of school last year, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but when you're working on somebody else's budget, so to speak, you're getting a salary. You've already hit your numbers for the year, call it. And you got an opportunity in my world, say with the biggest insurance company who needed roadside assistance in my past career. Um, you could go in there and talk ad nauseum about what roadside assistance is, but you would then say to them, where's your biggest pain point? Are the cars going to the wrong panel beaters? Are they not going to where you need them to go? All of that sort of stuff. And we can ensure that by using technology, for instance. There you've got your angle. Okay, well, let's circle back. One of those other great euphemisms that we all love so much when you're building a business on your own scent is I want from that meeting, I either want a very quick no, like, we've already got it. So for document extraction, for instance, in my current company or my water business, no, we don't need that. Thank you very much. That quick no in a marketing environment, in a sales environment, I know it sounds so contradictory. But getting your point across of what you do, and that I think is what I had to go through, losing money on certain ventures, and the mistakes you make can often be, in my world, on a B2B basis, one of the biggest drivers of where a sales conversation can go. I can quite easily exit a conversation, even for somebody with my ability to speak, a meeting within 20 minutes by asking poignant questions about, do you have a service like this? Is it contextual? Can it do multi-languages? Do you need to get back to your clients quicker? Do you need to be able to extract or compete against another policy and ingest that information? All of that sort of stuff. If they've already got it, they've got it. That's great.
Yeah.
And I think the longer you've been in certain industries, the more you realize the less amount of stuff you have to sell somebody. I know it sounds so contrary, but we have focused solely in this last company, the digital business of mine. We concentrated solely on we do one thing. That is it. And in previous iterations of when we landed one of the big international insurers and one of the continental banks to do travel insurance products, it was an 18-month yes with a burn rate, eye-watering burn rate. So when we did eventually get the business, we were attractive to investors, but there's such a difference there. If you've got a quick no, we might have got seven other guys because we were doing pet insurance, we were doing household insurance, we were doing embedded insurance, and we only got one of those lines because we were probably going in there with so many different things in the back of our heads. And enthusiasm is the great leveler. If you don't have it, you can suck the energy out of a fluorescent tube, but when you have too much of it, you want to just throw everything out there. And I've had multiple times where you look at people and they can be some of the most intelligent people you've ever met, and they're just sitting there going like, what did you just say? Like, they'll know my kids' names, they'll have been to my wedding, and they'll still go like, what? So it's all relative to, like you say, the room's the one thing, but what you're selling has got to be
Yeah.
so easy to explain. And I think when you've come from a company that had 50 plus products, anywhere between transporting dead people to um, literally vouchers and rewards programs and all of that, if you don't ask, you are literally presenting to death. That is it. You're just going to put up and go through road, home, medical, vouchers, so spend and all of those kinds of things. So it's been a big learning curve, and maybe it's because I've done it by experience versus reading that book. But I've
Yeah.
watched other entrepreneurs, their mistakes, and often people will ask me like, how did you do it? And I was like, well, went bankrupt a few times, and they're always like astounded by that. But you can't, like in an entrepreneur's world, we lucky enough to get to now cherry pick where I think the industry's going. So from an insurance and banking point of view, and our own internal message of what we sell has changed because of the way the market moves.
Yeah.
So we see these huge insurers, and we think they're going to be interested in operational expense reduction, when in actual fact, they want to grow their top line. So they are more interested in taking a competitor's policy, ingesting it in minutes, spitting it out, getting it back to the broker to win the business, than what they were in us pulling in and making everything a lot operationally smoother for a claims environment, making data use and the manual manipulation thereof so much easier. But what it came down to was our marketing message. We may as well have just slapped up a website that said we can extract a competitor's policy in minutes. And we probably would have got more,
Mm.
as opposed to putting up these long-winded, or in our case, not that long-winded, because I think we landed our first client before we registered our company, and then we only did our website 3 weeks after we actually landed our first client. So great story to tell, landing a business on an iPhone 6 because the kids had smashed your actual iPhone, and the company was set up in a dev environment on a door on a trestle table. So we haven't got the garage part like the rest of the unicorns. Not that we're a unicorn. We're a unicorn in Zimbabwe at the moment, but it has a very beneficial point where we say we only just do one thing. and our marketing message is so much easier.
But I would just want to tap into what you're going to is actually understanding the client's pain point, because I think previously I had a similar example of, and Alex is bored to death with this story, but I love voice analytics, right? And 10 years ago, I helped implement voice analytics at an insurer. And what it does is, because I looked after call centers, so it translates that call recording, which has gold in it, and allows you to then map it, right? So you can search it and listen to it and pick up, voice sentiment. And it's just so awesome. From an operational perspective, it was gold to me and I wanted it, right? I was managing these and I wanted it. But if I went in with, I can get my quality control better and I can do this, I was never going to get the business case, right? I knew where I fit into the structure and sales was not going to drive that business case. What drove the business case was compliance. And I used, at that stage, there was a major fine, and suddenly the whole company was up in arms going, oh no, we're going to get fines. Guess what? This tool is going to solve that because it's going to give you 100% compliance, 100% call listening. We can know beforehand if an agent is saying the wrong words. That is how I got it signed off.
Mm.
That's how I got it rolled out. And so the sales benefits, which is actually what I wanted, I got for free, right? But if I'd gone in with a business case based on sales benefits, I would probably still be waiting for it to be signed off. So I think that's another example of your message is you need to know what the client wants and tailor your marketing message to be aligned to that. Because inherently, as humans, we're all instinctively selfish, right? We've got in our brains the thing that's keeping us awake. And so when you're listening to a pitch, when you're listening to anything, you're listening for that thing, right? You're skimming the stuff that doesn't interest. It's like when you're skimming through social media or whatever, right? You're swiping on stuff that doesn't interest you. And the thing that's going to catch your attention is the thing you're thinking about.
Mm.
And so your marketing message needs to be that thing that the person is
Absolutely.
thinking about.
And also, I think something I maybe stepping away from the industry for a few years after I exited my last tech business just before COVID. You don't, and I literally took 2 years of completely away from the industry and seeing it from a completely different side as a consumer. And then coming back into the industry with something I sort of more than anything was quite stumbled upon. The applications for what our business is now in were being looked at in pathology reporting from the big blood testers in the country for other means and for other industries, and found the application of that extraction process to be what I thought was a big issue that nobody could get right in the South African insurance market. And having, and this is where I suppose being a person who's been in the industry, I almost said veteran and then I almost burst into tears, but being somebody who's been in the industry for long enough, I know the C-suite access points and I can get into the right person. And a lot of my stuff, most effective sort of introduction to what we do has been over a 30-second video clip of an extraction of something so simple and so relatable to a 40-something plus person who's normally got children, knows what their kids' handwriting's like. And I sent them a video from a table in a restaurant where there was handwriting in a table of names of wars across Europe. And bang, that 30-second video got us in and we beat out some of the top 10 companies globally to do what we do by pure understanding that from outside of the industry, and then seeing these products. I had a new way of lens of looking at everything, and then it became literally a yes or a no. Wow, that looks cool. Let's have a meeting. But I'd never had even one meeting without getting a commitment, which is lucky that I was in a position to do that, and it's probably the best sales position to be in any person's career, where you know the pitfalls of a long sales journey, and especially with large corporates. Entrepreneurs, especially out of the southern tip of Africa, we have local branches of international insurers here, and we can come up with the most incredible products, but it'll take 18 months before it gets to the head of the decision-making process in New York, or Dubai, or wherever it is. So it's a long haul, and if you can create that relevance before you go into the meeting, it's worth its weight in gold. And you've got to just assume that their time is also take a number, an extraordinarily high number, and say that is what your hour is worth, and that theirs is double that because they've got reporting. Remember when we were all in corporate, you had to report on a report on a report
Yeah.
to 400 different people. And so you take it from that context and you go and you say, how much of that hour can you save that person? Because they will then see that as almost like another reason to deal with Alex or Erica. It's an incentive. Oh, that wasn't a difficult meeting. In fact, they were quite pleasant. They were quite, in the back of their mind, they're going to be like, maybe it's worth giving them a try. And if you're a human being, you walk in there as a robot. We're not selling in the insurance space particularly. You're not selling um, misery. Their lives are tough enough. Like the insurance industry isn't the most exciting environment to work in regardless. So if you go in there and make their hour of time that you're taking away from the anxiety that they're going to have on Sunday nights because their reports are due on Monday, if you take less of that time away and you make it pleasant, you're 90% the way there to get that sale done. It's not
That
about what you're saying. It's how you make someone feel.
Yeah, that I mean that was kind of leads on to one of the questions I had for you. I mean, because it sounds like you've got that down to a T. I mean, it's when you're selling. I'll just ask you my question I had really, so that you can kind of elaborate, go into a bit more detail there. So I think a lot of people when they're trying to sell, they're just trying to sell the benefit to the company, but there's also the you're selling to somebody, and we always forget that. Well, I mean, lots of people forget that, and they think it's B2B. No, I just need to sell the product and the product benefits of the product to the company. But for example, if you're going to make somebody's life easier, if you're going to make them look better in the company, you're going to give them the opportunity to be able to advance in their career, create a better perception on them. So it's just like my question really is about how much do you mix when you're selling to someone, the business value versus the personal psychological value and the benefit to their career, for example.
Absolutely. It's a great question. The I would say the psychological and making we have a term saying we make somebody the rock star within their environment, and it works. It works like a charm. It could be someone who's new in the business, who's and wants to make an impact, but it could be somebody who's been there for 30 years. I think of a lovely lady from an American insurance company that Eric and I used to traverse in Johannesburg, and she'd almost become invisible in the company, and I present her with a solution to get travel insurance into people's hands within 3 minutes versus 30 minutes on a phone call, and made her look like a rock star. And then the next time we come up with an innovation, it could be something completely different about how to track a supplier coming to your house to fix a leak. First thing she will do, it's like, no problem, I'll set up a meeting. And you create that. It can get to the extreme where I think at my wedding in the early days of building out businesses, there was more people at my wedding that my wife didn't know than she did know. I literally, there's probably 4 or 5 businesses around the globe now that have senior South Africans on their boards of multinational New York listed insurance companies that were at my wedding, who my wife met at our wedding, and who subsequently my wife will never let me go for dinner with. That's the kind of relationships I've ended up having, and I'm so lucky. It's almost the same as going into boarding school for the first time, meeting people, and a big thing is also if people like doing business with people that they like. And you don't have to be somebody you're not. And I think it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't part of the boys club. I didn't go to school in the areas where all these geniuses had come from. Many of them aren't geniuses, I've come to realize. But when you have that personal relationship, you are able to ask questions that you wouldn't normally be able to ask. Like, what is the real, like, okay, your loss ratio is one thing. Okay, we can potentially help with that. But where you actually getting hammered? Now, you'll often find it's the strangest places. We've got a supplier management person who just cannot handle the pressure, and okay, so why don't we then put them onto our panel? We'll automate the processes. We'll get all the compliance certificates. We'll see their insurances all in place, and we'll digitize that. And they just have to deal with the exclusions. And you can make money out of that. And you not just that, now you're a business solution to that insurer in that case. Then they'll come to you and they'll say, well, okay, we've got another problem. What can you do there? It might not be digital. It might be pushing them to somebody else in your network. But that's kind of had to look at it as a real version of the early days of Facebook almost. You've got to make as many friends as you can.
But I love what you said about making someone the rock star in their business.
I love that. Yeah.
I think that's so, so powerful. And the second part of what you said, I actually had a conversation this morning where someone said, I'm not a product provider, I'm a solution provider. And you mentioned the word solution as well. And I think that's the other big change with B2B companies, especially if they have tech, right? Is you're not selling a product, you need to sell a solution. And in order to sell a solution, you need to understand what the problem is. And this is, you need to have, I think it's a phrase called talk time, right? In order to get to that, your talk time has to be less than the client's talk time.
Hang on. Not something I'm very good at. It's taken a lot. Once they've told me what the problem is, then I literally have an entire thought process live and in their face, often maybe throwing in a Scottish word, should we call it? To the point where I will go away and then hopefully come back with something that makes a lot more sense. But the solution side of it is critical, and I think also understanding where they are in a journey of digitization in my world. That is sort of my world at the moment, other than water and commodities. But when you look at being a tech business at the moment, because you see, I mean, Planter yesterday, and these valuations are going through the roof, and AI is on everybody's lips. There are some insurers, very large listed insurers, who had their tech panic attack 10 years ago. There's others that had it 15 years ago and now have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of tech debt that they cannot move away from because they have to crowbar and make it work. So it's a totally different way of also selling. In my recent career, it's more about also, I said about the quick no, but if you can get a handle very quickly, they might not have the component that we are selling, but they could have all the other components, and it's not that difficult then to plug that one in. So you've also got to start using the context of digital at the moment in the world. People who are starting insurance companies now can probably do it at 1/100th of the cost of what somebody who is running an insurance company for the last 30, 40 years in terms of digitally transforming their business. But at the same extent, everybody's going to end up with the same journey. And when we go and talk to older established insurance companies, there's no point in talking about what Salesforce is doing or what Sapien is doing, or, there's just it's about one portion of what you need now, not what you saw on a podcast 2 weeks ago. It's
Except this
about
one.
what's going to change, except what's going to change your day-to-day business to make it either more effective in a sales environment or more operationally effective and a delight to the clients, that they get a response on their claim within 24 hours because we managed to ingest all that information, and your claims agent just had to go look at that last little section and they went, right, that ties up with that, and they approved the car repair, for instance, or whatever it is. But you can't get to that point if your mind is so cluttered about, let's send out that video tool where we can now put AI on it and it'll give us an expense of the light bulb and the light. And, there's certain technologies that are
Yeah.
huge uptick of digital versus humans. It was almost like one or the other. This now human in the loop with technology is the easiest thing to sell at the moment, because there is a human element to it as well, and an ethical element that AI is going to come in, and I've seen it at InsurTech Connect. Again, thank you, Erica. Whatever, can we edit that part out and put the actual name of what we went to.
InsurTech Insights.
InsurTech Insights. Thanks again, Erica. Where you see there's a vast difference between the people who are saying bots and the people that are saying technology and people. It is a completely different mindset. And if you're in a place that just wants bots, you know
Bots.
you're not the right place. That is when techies talk to techies. If they want to talk to somebody who understands the industry and sees how you need to still have empathy using technology, and you don't want to be in those conversations where they just want a bot to do everything, because they generally don't understand what a bot does. If somebody goes, "We need a bot," you ask them what a bot is. Oh, it's what the bank's got. And how's your experience with the bot at the bank? It's generally hell. And what do you end up putting?
Yeah.
0 or 9 for a human. So I've just banged the desk, so you might want to edit that.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the huge technology boom is kind of, you know, like the epic magpie effect, where everyone's like, I like the technology, 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 and then they forget about the human, and they get to the point where they're like, well, why suddenly we're getting like poor engagement rates or whatever with our customers? And it's because, you know, people are fed up with speaking to a bot, like you said, or a chat bot, and they're not getting anything useful back. And it's that point when once you start plugging in the human, you see the value of the human, the nuances of the human can bring. I just wanted to something you said a while ago about when you're trying to sell into businesses and you're competing with maybe like a multinational company, and you gave us your story about how you got in in that aspect. But and especially when you were just starting in, let's say, take your new business, for example, you're completely unknown and you're going against some very large companies. How do you establish credibility kind of off the mark, especially if you're speaking to a larger company who normally work with other larger companies, for example?
I think the first thing is to establish personal credibility, which I think 20 years plus of being in the industry, I had those people, I was at their kids' birthday parties. I had those relationships. I had that relationship. So that's one unique version or element of my story. So that wouldn't necessarily be, you know, I suppose people could learn from that in terms of never burn your bridges. If you get a no in a previous company, you could get a yes for the next thing you do. You just never, you literally never know. I'm at the moment managing to open doors of companies I've been trying to get for 20 plus years across all of my businesses. But because I never sulked when we didn't do anything, we'd grab a cool drink when we were with each other. We would go, I would still remain close to them, as close as, you know, it was appropriate. But when we first did it, I partnered with somebody who has huge credibility when it comes to technology. So their CVs are as long as my years are in the industry where I was learning things, but theirs are totally technology CVs. So some of the big international brands, they had been part of technology build out. So, and within the first sort of couple of days of introducing what we were thinking of doing, literally with the second biggest insurer on the African continent, when we showed them what we were able to do, they immediately went and found what was wrong with what they were doing, what they were trying to do with these NASDAQ listed clients, suppliers, and we managed to show the differences of what a element for the local market could do. So we had the credibility of the two shareholders, and I in the first meetings, they didn't know who Carlo, my shareholder in the business. They knew me because they'd seen me around or I'd done stuff for them before. But I immediately went on about how proficient our technology team is in what they're doing. We are GDPRs. We are using the correct lingo, showing confidence, being enthusiastic, and ultimately I put my own reputation on the line once I got firm understanding of what we could do as a business. And I literally put, must have, I think the first 2, 3 clients we had, I personally put it in writing to them that we would give them all their money back if we didn't hit a certain success ratio defined by both parties. So I was lucky that I had that ability and that trust relationship with them where I said, let's do it for 2 months, do it for 3 months. If it doesn't work, I'll give you all the money back. And if you're sitting as the head of technology for one of these large guys and you're looking at a US dollar rate or a pound rate versus a local South African rate. I mean, when we proposed in the UK, sorry, I'll go back to, they can find a local supplier they don't have to fly out from a foreign country, who can get on a plane or walk across to their office, have a conversation with them to fix a bug or reprogram something, retrain something, whatever it is. And we then ask them what they want us to do with it. If it's in a foreign language, put it in English. Always put the client's name at the top. So we build it out to them. Again, create a rock star. Within 3 weeks, he presented to Exco, and Exco just went, geez, it's incredible. Let's go. And we went. And so very, very lucky. Timing was everything. But I think you've got to create that credibility, because as a startup, you're always gonna struggle. You getting that first client is always the hardest thing, because if you don't have a client, then nobody wants to be your first, so to speak, in business at least. And that was one of the biggest challenges we had in my career. But by the same extent, if you're laser focused on what you're doing and somebody sees the passion, you got to maybe knock on 100 doors, but one of them will open. I mean,
But I think that
law of
is like the power of small businesses, and the reason why we have small businesses is because small businesses can offer what large corporations cannot, and that's personalization, flexibility, at that personal touch as well. Like you said, when you're writing a letter, like what if you get a Microsoft solution, you're not going to get a personalized letter from Bill Gates, you know? But there's something super powerful about a personalized message. And if you get that, and then you're tailoring the whole service that you have, or the output of your service, to exactly what they need, and that's super powerful as well.
very much so. And I think as an investor, across my career, I've started to realize that if we cannot, within that first meeting, create some kind of commitment from that potential client of skin in the game, and it has taken many, many, many years and many ventures to be able to walk away and rather keep that relationship intact than creating frustration on their side and on our side. If you can't, within that first meeting, create some kind of reason to meet again, I think is the biggest one from an entrepreneurial point of view. And to get to that level and not think that you not have constant FOMO. And it is like, if I go back, maybe they won't be so stuck up on that in the multinational company. And you know that what's going to happen, because those multinational companies are not built for multi-languages like in the environment that we're building this out. And that's why we're looking into Europe as our next extension, is because we can work across a multinational insurer across all languages. But in the South African environment, all we needed to do was get certain elements right that the multinational said you have to do on your own. Insurance companies don't want technology people on their books. I'm seeing more and more that the cost of retention of those people, or the cost per hour of those people, is becoming so prohibitive and so detrimental to the rest of the team. They're taking people away from dealing with claims to be able to afford to have John, who's a rockstar Python developer, And you're seeing it more and more because there's just so much focus on we have to build it internally. We have to build it internally. And with cloud computing nowadays, or cloud storage and microservices, it's so much easier for them to plug something in. And I must be honest, that's not because we are as good as what we are. The world moved that way a lot with these companies that you've seen technologies coming out of sort of nowhere in our environment, names that we'd never heard of 2 years ago. So, and startups we're hearing more and more success stories about startups. And I think when COVID happened, a lot of people realized, we can only ever have a meeting on this platform or it has to be face to face. And then we could only use certain of those big brands. WebEx, I think, was one of them. And there was those ones that only, if you were dealing with New York and you were in London, you could only log on through this because it had to be safe. Next thing, everyone's using Zoom.
Yeah.
And there was no issue with it. It was quick, it was fast. So the market moved towards us. And I think if you don't have that perspective, and maybe if you're not stuck up in trying to be everything to everyone, you can see those shifts. And you can see when you say we're only a year old, people don't flinch, and we've been very lucky. We can say we've got the two magnificent brands on board, and it does make the sales environment a lot easier. But there's a very fine line between being proud of where we've got to in a year versus sounding like a prize beep-er, which is a tough one, or sounding, what's the word? Unhumble. There's a word for it, but anyway. So it's a balancing act.
So I want to just pull out some of the gold that you shared there. I think some of the gold was about relationships. And I think people forget that. I actually had a chat with one of my mentees this morning because someone ignored her on LinkedIn and she was like, oh, I'm going to ignore him back. And I was like, really? What is that going to do? Like, maybe he was busy. Maybe there was something else happening. And what is the long-term vision? And so I think people forget that about, burn bridges, walk out, when you resign from a job, you're going to slam your desk and you're going to do all sorts of fun things. Why? Like, you never know. And the world is changing so fast. So I think that story of keeping the relationships going, even with a no, it's a no today, but it may not be a no forever. You don't know where you're going to end up, where this person's going to end up. So I love that. And then if you don't have your own credibility because of that relationship, is finding then a partner or a spokesperson or somebody who has the credibility that you can leverage. And even if it's not relationship credibility, it could be, as you shared, educational credibility or something like that, whatever that credibility is, but finding it so that together you make a powerful team. So I really loved that as a key learning from what you shared.
As a matter of interest, just touching on when you said LinkedIn there, I'd love to know, and I don't know if you guys have looked into the efficiency of it or have had conversations around LinkedIn specifically. I've seen a very big dependence on LinkedIn for people in sales jobs. And bosses will go, well, have you linked up with that person? Have you sent them a LinkedIn message? As opposed to, have you picked up the phone, gone through their front reception desk and asked to speak to Eloise? No. What did you do? No, I sent them a LinkedIn thing. How long ago? X amount of time. That's the one element. Somebody does connect with you on LinkedIn. Often I find I'm already connected with them. And it's not that I've never met the person, never done any business with them. I don't know if I ask them, they ask me. But I am not 100% sure if I wasn't in a business that I need to see all the communication channels around me, if I would be that involved in LinkedIn. If you talk to people who don't have to sell their services necessarily, like a doctor, they'd never be on LinkedIn, for instance. They might be there purely for reputational reasons, but the efficiency of LinkedIn, I'd love to know. I've had amazing successes on it, but people trying to sell me stuff on LinkedIn, I have a very different view on it, if that makes any sense. But if you have a strong personal brand, and if I was starting my whole career over again, firstly, there was no social media in those days, but if we ignore that for a fact, building out your personal brand must be one of the biggest tools you can have moving into sales, whether it's making your professional footprint as professional and as detailed as possible. Talk about the solutions you can make, you've created in the past, where you like going in the future. Um, all of those sort of elements. And if you can then connect on a person-to-person basis, and you see it all the time. If people aren't built to do sales or marketing, don't make them.
Yeah,
Watching
agree.
somebody crumble in anxiety in a presentation, we've all seen it. It is one of the most, it's like watching a comedian go on stage and just not be funny. It's
Yeah.
horrific. Certain people are meant to be in front of humans and certain aren't. I've seen people train themselves up to be incredible public speakers and nobody on this call, obviously, and become like really good at it and really comfortable at it. But I think you're not going to create a personal relationship when the other person's feeding anxiety off of you. It's people want less anxiety in today's world, not more.
Wow. No, that's really interesting. I think both Alex and I have had great successes and difficulties with different clients. Some who worked really well via LinkedIn and some who didn't, right? And I think personally we've done very well with LinkedIn. The
Really.
Marketing Detective has done well for us. The Giraffes Don't State podcast has done well for us. But it is very dependent on the front face, on how comfortable you are, and how much you're willing to share. I always say you can choose, right? You don't have to go and put your whole life story out there. And I ate a bacon sandwich for lunch, and like you choose how much or how little of yourself you want to give. But obviously, people buy from people.
And I think so just one last thing on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn, it started off as an outbound tool
Yeah.
and it's changed now to an inbound tool. Uh, Like you said, it's full of people just doing an immediate outbound sales message, which gets lost in the
Noise.
plethora of the noise of sales messages you get. So it's now turned into, I'm creating lots of valuable content for the masses on LinkedIn, and then people approach you.
Mm.
Sure.
I mean, I get at least one message a week of people saying, I want to talk to the marketing detective, which is
Wow,
cool because,
fantastic.
yeah, that's it. The
Love
marketing
that.
detective. Let's talk.
That's very cool. Love
Ron,
that.
we could talk forever. I love this. Thank you so much for all the gems you shared. For those who are interested in learning more about your business and the awesome tools that you provide, or just wanting to chat to you further about your entrepreneurship journey, how do we get hold of you?
LinkedIn. Ronald Gall. Alternatively, fintechmicro.com. That's literally as you say it, fintechmicro.com. Yeah, but otherwise, hit me up on LinkedIn. More than happy to have a chat. And if people wouldn't mind having a look at my LinkedIn at our charity called Pilasonke, which helps stroke victims and head injury victims in Soweto in Johannesburg. I'd really appreciate if anybody in corporate could have a look at that and see if they could join our CSI journey to help adults and lots of kids who could really deal for less than £200. We can put somebody through 18 months of physical and emotional rehabilitation to get them using their wheelchair on their own, that sort of stuff. So if I could punt that more than my personal brand, I'd really appreciate that because it's very close to my heart.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. Alex, your
You
biggest
for having me.
takeaway today?
Um, I think the rock star. I love that. I think make your contact the rock star in their business, and that will really help to get you an advocate within the business that you're trying to sell to.
Yeah, I really like that as well. Ron, last word of wisdom for our audience.
Build your personal brand, I reckon. Uh, what's the worst that could happen?
I love that.
It's a no-lose situation.
Love that. Thank you so much, Ron. It's been so awesome chatting to you, and we'll definitely be in touch again.
Thank you, guys. Nice to see you both.
Alex,
Yeah, nice to
fun
Well
as
meet
done.
you.
always.
Great podcast. Well, hopefully this one's as good as the other ones, but well done. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Giraffes Don't Eat Steak, where curious marketers zig when others zag. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with someone who loves great marketing conversations. And don't forget to follow, review, or drop us a note. We love hearing from fellow curious minds. And if your own marketing's feeling a bit tangled, check out our Marketing Power Hour. It's a focused one-to-one session designed to help you get clarity and momentum. Just go to themarketingdetectives.com and book your slot. Until next time, keep zigging.